Okay, folks, well, good morning. Great to see you all. I hope everybody's keeping well. My name's Damien Smith and I'm Head of Literature and Drama at the Arts Council. The last voice you heard was Noreen McKinney, the Director of Arts Development at the Arts Council. I also have colleagues, Suzanne Lyle, who is the Head of Visual Arts here at the, or there at the Arts Council, wherever the Arts Council can be deemed to be at this stage, apart from our living room. And also Leanne McGee, who's a digital content officer, and who will be having a look at all the chat room facility that's available on this particular platform, which you might want to make use of to ask questions if you're not able to get through online, or to make other comments or whatever. I'm just going to do a few little housekeeping hints at the moment as regards the there's some difficulties with email or with connectivity somewhere. Okay, well look, I'll just say we've got 2 hours to try to get through as much as we can on this individual emergency resilience program. Might come in under that time, but we have that time available anyway, you know, to be able to respond. Some people mightn't be able to stay for the whole session. If you want to drop out at any stage, do. If there's anything you think hasn't been covered that you've missed, you can drop an email in and we'll try to pick that up separately offline. Keep the microphones on mute if you wouldn't mind, because it'll cut down the background noise. People like me have always seemed to have their microphone on mute anyway, and have to be reminded not to. The chat function I've mentioned already, and we'll try to get to questions after we've gone through the guidance notes and the frequently asked questions, which we'll try to do as briskly as we can, because those have been online now for well over a week. So people may have had the opportunity to have a look at them already, and you might have your questions ready. So we will be saving the questions, we'll be publishing the responses online, so there will be a resource available there to consult subsequently. We're also recording this session, and we'll be making that available online as well. So hopefully I've got my best side this morning. I'm not sure, but we're going to have to go with it anyway. So I've done the introduction to who's in the room, and I think, have I missed out anything, Leanne?
No, I think you've got everything covered there, Damien.
Okay, well look, Leanne will share the screen now with everybody who's on, and I'll walk through the items as we go through them. And if you just bear with me while I do that, and then we can get to the questions subsequently. Okay, thanks, Leanne. Okay, look, there you are. The program actually opened yesterday, so it's all live from yesterday, including the application portal. So if you've had a look at that, you'll see the type of questions that are being asked. They're very limited, but it's open now, it's live from Thursday the 17th of December, and it'll close at 4 p.m. on Thursday the 7th of January. The completion date, as I'm sure you're familiar now with all the emergency funds that there are, the completion date is end of March 2021. The first thing to say right at the start is you can get your application logged on and open right away, and you can return to that application and augment it and build it up over the period. Don't leave this one to the last week or to the last few days, certainly not to the last day, because the volume of interest in this is going to be considerable. And for a variety of reasons, it's the Christmas period, it's software, which is always problematic, and there are issues to do with in some cases to do with the type of email server that you might be using. I think we're looking at, there are some that are more compatible than others, but you'll just need to try to get it open and work on it as quickly as you can. Okay, Leanne? So look, the main objective of this programme is to retain a vital workforce within the creative sector. So many freelance workers and creatives we know have lost all earned income this year. So what we're looking with this programme to do, as with the first round of it, is to get support to individual creatives in the cultural and arts sector, creative sector, broadly understood. And that means people who are venue support staff, DJs, craftspeople, freelancers of all sorts, people who have technical skills, professional skills, who wouldn't normally be directly funded through the Arts Council or any other fund, but may earn their living through working with venues or festivals or other locations and other types of performance, for instance. So it's really as wide as possible, the catchment on this programme. The applications can also be considered from groups of individuals working in collaboration, but really there needs to be a lead applicant in this. You might be able to think of circumstances in which you might want to make something or just support, gain support for what a group is doing, then you can apply through with a lead individual. Now we are looking, as I say, with particular emphasis on those who haven't been able to access other forms of financial support from government. So, that's the first thing. And not everybody has been able to access the self-employment relief and other types of scheme that's been available. And not everybody has been able to access Arts Council funding, even going right back to May with the Artists Emergency Programme, which was more focused on artists practitioners. And then there was the latest round of the Individuals Emergency Resilience Programme, just a month and a half or so ago, where even though there were over 1,400 applications to that, not everybody who was eligible applied, and there were some that weren't able to access funding at that point. So we're trying to get, as they say, people who have fallen through the gaps. Now that does not mean that if you received funding at those, those points or from any other source, that you don't apply to this. That's not the case. Need isn't solved by one fund, so that's an ongoing thing. We understand that. So if you have that, then you can obviously apply to this round. As I say, fund aimed at workers in the creative and arts economy in whatever capacity. There's a list there of the type of of people that are eligible. Those are just indicative, just to give a sense that there aren't particularly exclusions on this one, and it's that wide, and it's not an exhaustive list. But the point is that individuals themselves will state what their role is in the sector, broadly understood, and then we will, that's our starting point for assessment. The awards are up to £5,000. So, how do you arrive at that figure or any other figure? You base it on the information you can assemble about the impact that the award would have on the sustainability of your professional skills and creative development. You can obviously talk about what income you've lost, what income you haven't been able to earn over the period. That would obviously have an impact on what amount you'd be applying for. It's significant enough, but it's not life-changing, but it can be a lifesaver in some cases if it's, as you know. So if you're deaf and disabled, you may apply for up to an additional £2,500 towards personal assistance to support you for disability and deaf access requirements. So that's an added assistance there for people who need that. So eligibility, need to be over 18, living in Northern Ireland. It's an online only application. Answer all the questions. You have to submit a separate CV or statement about your career in the creative sector to date. And you must submit a separate reference from an independent source to verify your practice. Now, a CV, not everybody is familiar with the CV culture that we're in. It's basically a description, usually with dates, bullet points of your career. The highlights are the chart of your career, if you like, in the creative sector to date, what type of work, how long, when. And you can include a narrative with that. You must also, though, submit a separate reference from an independent source. And this is somebody who can say, yes, this person has been working in the sector, is a familiar part of the landscape. And if that person, so it would be somebody that you've worked with or worked for, or someone who knows you and can vouch for you. And as you see, there can be employer, promoter, venue owner, booking agent, etc. So if possible, that person may be able to confirm losses of earnings that you may have undergone over that period. So we would use so-and-so services twice a month over a period of 6 months, and that rate would be at such and such. You may not want to go into that kind of detail, but nonetheless, that kind of detail will strengthen your application, because it gives us something to evidence as impact of the pandemic, and it'll also help to fill out the your description of the benefit of the award to you subsequently. Now, further details on the requirements for the enclosures are on the frequently asked questions document, which we'll come to shortly. We'll be keeping all the information on computer. We'll be using that for the administration of applications and grants. We'll be generating statistics and information on those who are successful, because we have to account for the money that's being spent, and we have to account for the impact and the value of it. You should keep a copy of your completed form and all the enclosures just for your own records. So, it's up to you to keep any evidence, anything you have that relates to paid work that's been affected due to COVID. Keep emails and correspondence and other proof, as we'll be looking for these we may be looking for these in the event of a successful application. Now, in terms of other, taxation and so on, again, that's up to yourself to come to those arrangements with the government agencies that would handle your matters, your business matters. We don't have advice on that, because we don't know the detail of your circumstances. You do. So it's up to you really to look after that aspect yourself. Okay, if we just go down, maybe have a wee quick look at the assessment and decision-making process. We'll do an eligibility check, which is just to see that you're living in Northern Ireland and you're under, you're over 18, and that all those eligibility points. If one or more of the mandatory enclosures that we've asked hasn't been submitted, then the application is incomplete, and so it's ineligible and it won't be assessed. It's going to be a large number of applications, and we won't be able to assess things that we don't have the full information on in the mandatory way. So there's a detail of those on page 4 of the guidance notes that are online. And so it's up to you really to make sure that we've got the mandatory enclosures. And again, there's more about that on the frequently asked questions. So the Arts Council will issue a notification. We'll acknowledge receipt of your application, or we'll advise you that it's ineligible. Now, so that's the point where you need to be sure. That's why I'm saying about get it open early, get a look, make sure that you've ticked all the boxes, you've got everything in that needs to be got in, because we won't be able to go back to ask you for other information. When it's eligible, we will be assessing on these 2 grounds. It'll be your CV, which will evidence your contribution to the creative sector in Northern Ireland, and on the benefit that the award will have on the sustainability of your professional skills. So that's it. Those are the two criteria that we will be examining, assessing on. So the information that you give us on those two grounds will be absolutely critical. Now, that's not the only information that you're asked to provide, but the information on those two will be what will inform the assessment process that we'll go through. We'll say a wee bit more about that later. So this is about the impact of your work and practice. Think about what impacts your work and your ability to work in the round. So it won't only be the professional circumstances or the industry circumstances or the impact of COVID, there'll also be impacts elsewhere that will have an effect on how you go about your business. That could be domestic circumstances, it could be care responsibilities. Those things will all count, because this is about the impact your work and practice has had and how it will be sustained and continue to be sustained. So all decisions regarding applications are Arts Council responsibility. The amount will depend, overall will depend on the overall. Could you move that up a wee bit there, Leanne? Thanks. On the, the number of what comes in and the value of the new and the requests that come in as well, which could be considerable. If an applicant has a low, we'd be looking at in those two criteria, we'd be looking at high, medium, and low markers, if you like, on each of them. So if an applicant scores a low against any of either of those criteria, it won't be funded. The available budget isn't going to be, we imagine, isn't going to stretch to that. And anyway, a low is not a good look, if you like, on those. So this is where evidence and information is at a premium. As I say, high, medium, and low. We'll come on to that maybe later on too, just what those mean. But they're fairly broad. But the low is one that you want to avoid, and you can avoid that through providing information. If you're not happy with the way we've handled your application, there is a complaints procedure which you can go through ultimately. But we're a bit from that at the moment. Mandatory enclosures. There's a list that's on the guidance. There it is. CV about the career, reference from independent source. If you're a student, there is you need a letter and headed paper from the head of department confirming that the funds are not going towards that work. There are other elements there. If you scroll down again there, Leanne, there are other elements there that relate to students. The useful information, this is fairly standard. Arts Council will be publicising our information we hold is open for scrutiny of government. Scroll on down there, Leanne, thanks. Data protection, obviously these are statutory requirements from the Arts Council. Applying online, there we are, it's online, it's been tested. There are some issues, not receiving notification when applications are added. That these issues relate to the account holders of certain email address providers, and those have been BT Internet, Yahoo and Virgin, which are not as stable in relation to our systems and the civil service systems, if you like, as other providers. So what we're recommending is that if you're having any difficulty at all, or you think you might have, use Gmail or Outlook email addresses in order to get into the online application process. Now that's getting into an area where I have absolutely no expertise and can't shine much light. But what I can say is, if you do have problems with that, either talk to somebody who does know about those things, or you can come through to the Arts Council, and we'll try to help as best we can on those, on that advice. So those are to do with those email providers. It's got nothing to do with the Arts Council ourselves. We can't fix them from our side. Okay. So if we bring it on down a little bit more, Leanne, is that the end of that? Yep. On to the frequently asked questions, and there's a lot of this that we will have already covered. There's the closing date. If you work in the creative sector in any capacity, you're eligible for support. You then must evidence that. So there you are. Are you eligible? I'm not an artist. I'm eligible. Yes, you are. If you can show you've been working in the sector in any way. So the list is there. We've already gone over that. I hope that message is going out clearly. Can I apply for training or mentoring or other personal professional development costs? Yes. Again, these have to be closed off by the 31st of March. Loss of earnings due to COVID-19? Yes. Again, that's eligible. Equipment or materials? Yes. We're not looking for a van here, but you are looking for cameras, perspex, small items, iPads. We'll think about on a case-by-case basis. Not second-hand equipment, it'll have to be new. We are looking for things that can help maybe transition practice, or that can help you do stuff at home that you would have normally been doing in a work environment, whatever. Now we're going to try to get this decisions through during February. Now you all know the circumstances everybody's working under, and with volume of requests coming in, it's over a Christmas period. People are trying to get through everything, so we're aiming for decisions in February. So I think if we should be able to hit that target, and I think that'll be doing well. I think it's an achievable target, and we'll certainly be aiming to do that. You don't have to create work at all under this, but there's a question there because it does come up. If I'm applying for creation of work, does it have to relate to COVID? No, it doesn't. Your CV, if you have any doubt as to what a CV is, Google format for a CV, see the type of material that's in it, and provide that. Bullet points would be fine as a kind of a descriptor of your working life. You can see some ideas given there about training and length of service and so on. The reference. Now this is something that is a bit unusual, I suppose, from our perspective as well. But this is a short statement simply confirming that you are what you say you are in working in the sector. And as it says, employer, tutor, convener, promoter, booking agent, local arts officer, venue manager, colleague, medical protector, anybody who can vouch for you in the role that you have in the sector. And if possible, this would be where somebody, if there were a venue manager or somebody who was booking you, would be able to say, as I've said earlier, they might be able to confirm loss of earnings. It should be signed, and digital signatures are acceptable. Okay, and there's other issues there about the referee, which are, again, that would apply to collaborative proposals. Can you collaborate with somebody else? Yes. Again, these are things that you need to think about yourself in relation to the maximum benefit of the, of any award. Maximum is 5,000. So you do want to maximize the value of that for applicants. Can you apply if you're a student? Yes. And then there's a list of the fairly conventional issues that relate to students making an application to anything, which is that we're not paying for your education through this scheme. Now, what would a description of the benefit of the award on sustainability be like? Now, so it says this can be as simple as it would help you buy time from work that you might have to do that isn't arts related. So in other words, it would try to keep you, preserve you, if you like, for your arts work and for the arts sector, rather than drifting into earned income outside the arts sector, which is not a good thing from our perspective, or from the arts perspective, or from yours. So it's also about helping you maintain a presence in that sector that you want to work in, or to enable you to, or you could be developing new ideas, or you could be working on your own or with others. But I would suggest you think about that in the round, as I said earlier. There are a lot of benefits. There are a lot of things that impact on an artist's or a creative person's or a worker's ability to do work. And those go right from the domestic situation right out into your transport or availability for being able to get about if you need to. All those things a bit of an award that you would get from a scheme. Can you apply to the scheme if you're currently in receipt? Yes, there it is, but obviously not for the same things, not for the same project, not for the same activity, not for the same costs. And again, we have that thing that I mentioned earlier, that we are looking to, with with particular interest in those who haven't managed to get anything over that period from any of the schemes. But that does not mean that if you have received funding, that you don't apply, or that you will be somehow downgraded in that sense. We're looking at need, and you will be making the argument on that. Okay, so we may not be able to fund the entirety of what you ask for, but we will be making reasoned recommendation for funding. But that will again be based on the information you give us, and the amount of it and the quality of it. So it's to your benefit to be as upfront and as fulsome as possible. The completion date of the awards, 31st of March. The first objective, as I said, is to sustain artists and creative sector workers in their practice. You don't have to make work. There's the note from the employer about the impact of COVID-19. Universal credit, you just give us that information. Could you scroll that down a wee bit, Leanne? Thanks. Oh, have I lost me universal credit? There it is, yeah. We would ask, tell us about that. Tell us about what you've received. And if there's any other awards or any other funding that you've received, tell us about that too. There's a location for you to do that. And we'll be looking at that as a yes, no response rather than high, medium, or okay. It's online system, we've gone through that. There's email providers issues there, which we've already addressed. Yep, and that's the historical information and all that stuff, which is fairly statutory. We will be, yes, it looks like we will be updating the frequently asked questions as we get inquiries, and ones that are appearing to recur, we'll be responding to formally, as well as putting all this material online. Okay, I think that's us at the end of the FAQs. What I might do is just before we open up the questions, maybe, is to just do a very quick skip, which we don't have on screen here, but we will have. It's just to say, it's just to reinforce the idea of the role in the creative sector, which is the first criteria. It's our scoring is looking at the strength of role in the creative sector from the applicant statement on the application form and CV or career statement, and it's high, medium, or low. High is a significant track record of working in the cultural sector, very good engagements, sectoral profile, track record. Then a sufficient track record and limited track record. That's really as far as that goes. And that will all be based on the information supplied. Same for the benefit of the award will have on the sustainability of your skills and your creative development. Again, is there significant demonstration? Have you told us enough about what the benefit will be? Is it sufficient or is it limited? And loss of earnings, you tell us what that might be, and we say yes, there is evidence of loss of earnings, or no, there isn't. Other forms of financial support, yes, there is, there has been, or no, there hasn't. It's as simple as that. So we'll be, and then that's it really. So the onus is really on the volume of information from yourselves. Okay, I think we can maybe open it to questions now. I saw a few things popping up there on the chat room, so I'm not sure how many are in there, but let's try to take the questions anyway, and we'll try to pick up the chat room as we go through.
Yeah, so we have a question there. The first question was from Mark Boyle. If you haven't been able to avail of any government or Arts Council funding thus far, is there a best area of the application to make this clear, assuming these individuals are prioritised if their application is applicable?
Well, there is a question that's asked, have you received any other funding related to COVID? And if you say no, I haven't, that's sufficient. We will, that answers that question. So that will address that. If you say, yes, I have, and then you tell us what that is, because it asks for that as well. Okay, Mark, I think that's should be straightforward enough at that point.
Our second question is from Will. Is HMRC made aware of who is successful and awarded funds?
No, well, we don't make that available though to them directly, but obviously all our recipients are made public, and the information is retained and is available for the scrutiny, and we are audited, and there are internal audit and external audit in due course. But no, we don't supply a list of recipients to the revenue and customs people. Did you want to say something there, Noreen, on that particular point?
No, I was just going to concur with you that, yeah, as you've described. It is just to underpin that, as Damien's gone through in the guidance notes, it's your responsibility in terms of your affairs. But we certainly don't send a list, but all awards are published.
So our next question is from Mark. Should your contribution to the creative sector in Northern Ireland be included in your CV, or is it separate?
Well, your CV will evidence your contribution, your role in the sector. That'll tell us what you've done, when you did it, how long you've been doing it. And I think that's a good indicator of evidence. But you might also want to say, to provide a narrative about that, and to say a short statement about how you've contributed and what you've done. And obviously also then the reference that you would have would reinforce that also. You'd have a reference from somebody who would say, yes, yeah, you've done this, and you've, this person's done this, and they are who they are, and they've done that work for that length of time.
Yeah. I would just add, in the box on the form, don't put say attached CV, do put in, it's a short word count. Sorry if it seems a bit repetitive, but the benefit of that for us is on our system, we run all sorts of reports. So we have at a glance there, as I said, for all sorts of questions from every possible place as to, the nature and type of people who are applying to our schemes, with proper data protection, of course, with your names. But it gives us, just in terms of running reports off the system, a really good snapshot of the range of people who are applying. So don't fall into the say attached, just fill in to the word count, please.
Well, I am having a look at the chat box here. I might just try to go through, because we might be, there's quite a few questions here. We've done that from Mark there on the government funding. Stephen, there is question on lost out and directing the Panto. Significant.
All right, Damien, actually, but my questions were answered when you went through all the stuff. It's fine. So thanks anyway.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm, as usual, I'm way behind everything. I
think the next one's from Jackie, Damien.
Yes, I've had, okay. Vocal lessons, had to stop that. Backdate. Look, what you would say is just describe what you've described there, Jackie. That is the impact of the COVID. It's related to the loss of capacity, and it's to do with you trying to build up and sustain a career. And I think over this period, this is all going to be affected by the COVID, pandemic that we're in. So I would include that. The backdating thing doesn't really apply. It's really about what impact have you got, what have you lost, what have you not been able to gain over that period. And I think that would be an eligible cost. So I hope that the circumstances, the impact of the loss is possibly more important even than the circumstances around that, because of the conditions that we're in at the moment with the pandemic. So I hope that gives some sense of the response to that, and you should put as much of that information into the application as you can. Okay, somebody said there you will need to provide a statement. The reference needs to provide a letter and it needs to be signed. Digitally will be sufficient. So just referring to somebody that we should contact or providing a contact point won't be sufficient. So you'll need to get a statement, and I think that should be. I think that covers that one. Anybody online that wants to sing out at this point? Noreen,
could I just ask?
I think I might have done. I think I might have done a good job, Noreen. Something's gone terribly wrong. I want to have this. I want to have this recording.
Sorry, I know. No, I was just going to ask, did anybody have experience, without putting you on the spot, whether you were successful or unsuccessful or anything, but applying maybe to IERP 1 or AEP, and you're coming back in, and did you find the application process okay or difficult? But maybe you're all first-time applicants to the programme. No. Mark?
Me.
First time for me as well, but some of my colleagues applied at previous times and said that it was very straightforward and that they weren't sort of stressed out by it or anything. And a lot of them were first time grant appliers of any kind. So so that's encouraging. So.
Yes, that is. Stephen, thank you for that. Yeah.
Can I ask, I applied to the first round and got a small segment of what I'd asked for. Would that put me on the long list for applicants this time?
Make that clear, Bernadette. Yes, you wouldn't be in the first rank, and I think there'll be a lot of people like that who, applied, of course, for £5,000 maybe for the maximum award, or as Damien said, then just due to demand and volume. Unfortunately, even if you meet all of the criteria, it's not a direct, match over to full amount award, because we try to make it go as far as possible while still giving you hopefully something that is meaningful. But yes, but do make that clear, set out so that again we can see, the quantum of what you needed, and that, you got a much smaller maybe percentage towards that. So yeah, okay. do just set it out, but technically, yes, you'll be on the. It may not even be a reserve list. As I say, we will fund everyone that we can, who, depending on scoring, until the budget runs out. But with those first-time applicants, or previously those who haven't received funding in the first rank.
What we're trying to do is to anticipate potential volume of applicants, which might be very great. We do have, I don't think I mentioned that we've around £3 million to distribute at this point. So that is a considerable sum. It's certainly much larger than anything that, at one go, than anything we've ever handed out to individual applicants in the history of the Arts Council. So it's a big challenge for all of us. We're just trying to guess and anticipate beforehand, also to manage expectations of what's possible. So what I would say is, so we have these things which are, there were award schemes earlier, there are government schemes, there are other people have applied, but as I said earlier, need isn't solved by one visit to the well, you know. And I think that on this occasion, it's an iterative thing, you know. So what we're trying to do, each application that comes in will be, we'll be taking on its merits as regards its description of need and capacity and sustenance. And I think obviously then, if there's a big pressure, we will be looking to see how where the priorities might be within that, who needs that fast, who needs to get this assistance. But that is not deep, it's not to say that oh well, if I had it before, there's no point coming in, or I asked for such and such and I didn't get it and I won't get it again. That's not the case. Please come in, please apply, please put your case as strongly as possible as you can about current circumstances, because this is it now. This is possibly going to be the last attempt now to be able to resolve so many of the difficulties that people like us are all facing, really into. So this is it. So come in, tell us everything you need to tell us, and we will do our best to get you the relief that you need and that you're telling us about. We believe what we hear, as we say.
I would just add that, a note of thanks to the Minister and the department colleagues who, really have been working hand in glove with us and very receptive to, we've been going back to say, like, we would have funded all of these. As you know, there was a top up for the last individuals round for our SIAP round. Which was very welcome because we had viable applications there, very compelling applications, and they were able to respond to that. This is all, normally unprecedented, as Damien has been saying, and the response to the pandemic, I have to say, has been, that they have been receptive and listened and understand the needs. So again, with recent capital awards and health and safety for reopening, we were able to go back and say, like, X number of applications that we would love to support that were over the budget, and they've been working very hard. That helps them to make the case. So there's always that possibility too, that we'll just, we will be letting them know the quantum and how much beyond, if it does go beyond the £3 million, we would support, and just if there's any spare money at all, that can get hoovered up where it's most needed. So it's been a good open process. Suzanne, were you going to come in?
Yep, I was going to ask a question so you can all answer, because it's the kind of thing that comes up quite often in these funding things. So I'll put it as a person asking. But do you have to have a project that you are working towards, and do you have to lay out a budget in your application?
No. Our colleague here is putting challenging questions to us. No, as I said, you don't have to have a budget, you don't have to have a specific project. And I know that has caused a bit of consternation through earlier iterations of the programme, as Damien has articulated. But if you're applying for equipment, I don't know, do we put anything in about getting a quote? No. I mean,
well, the only thing we say as regards equipment is that it needs to be new. And obviously it's in everybody's interest to look for the keenest price, because to say 5,000, if it is a maximum award, say, or if it's 7.5, if there are other needs, that's not a vast sum. So you'd be wise to look for the keenest price, but it needs to be new. And I think if we may be going back round intermittently to, just to check on things like that for audit purposes. But I think it's an interest to do that, so to look at equipment, but there's certainly no project needed. This is about simply telling us what you need. We will assess it, we'll make the recommendation. Hopefully you'll get a letter of award, a letter of offer, and then you'll get the money quickly after that.
Yeah. If you are applying for a project, because you can, you don't have to, a la our usual support for individual artist program, give a detailed budget breakdown. Please just put your, I want to do X, Y, and Z, and I have costed it at £5,000 for talk's sake, which is largely my time as a creative, or, we've had some, especially on the collaborative projects, where I'll be employing 1 or 2 other practitioners or artists to work with me, but we don't want detailed budget breakdowns of that. We're absolutely, this is taken on trust, and you're the experienced people, you know what it costs. So take the opportunity to, don't torture yourself over budgets, just put in, I'm doing a project and it's going to cost X, and here's who else is involved in it, or it's my own project.
Mm-hmm. Or I have, would it be okay for people to put in then, or I have cover some of my living costs. It would enable me to buy time away from other things to get my work, creative practice, keep that ticking along. So it can be a description of that, of surviving in this period as much as a project, can't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. So, this award would enable me to, whatever that might be.
We've had successful applicants in the last round who were comedians. There were people who were stagehands, people who were fight organisers, people who were venue staff, who found themselves, because the venues were closed, their income was cut off. They may have been part-time or contract workers. We found lighting, sound technicians. So it's right across the range. And in fact, some creative practitioners that we hadn't even imagined were careers that were possible. And I think it's broadened our perspectives as well about how people creatively live and earn a living in our society. And we've had drag artists, we've had people who were involved in had impacts because there weren't particular shows going on to promote. There were people in promotion. There were people whose entire livelihood was based on flyers, both generating them for professional shows and distributing them in vans around places. This is the wide economy of the arts that you very rarely hear talked about. The creativity, the wider economy of creativity. And so those people were coming in and managed to get support. And we'd expect that there'll be quite a few of that kind of professional will be coming in again, happily. And I think we hopefully will be able to meet the demand on this occasion as well. Okay, Leanne, that looks, I mean, if there isn't anything.
Mark,
Mark?
Yeah, sorry, just a couple of quick ones, and they have been covered probably to some degree, but just for absolute clarity and to make the most of this session, I'd firstly just like to place some thanks on record to you guys for holding the session. It's obviously not something you had to do, but the clarity on the whole process is much appreciated for me, and I probably speak for some of the other guys in the call as well. So thank you very much for that. And yeah, just first thing on the values of the awards, is that based on an element of it is obviously the strength of your application, but is that based on your contribution to the arts, the money lost in the COVID period, or that you haven't received any funding so far from any source, or is it a combination of all of those things?
Well, the first thing it'll be, Mark, is your assessment of your need.
Yeah. Okay.
So that'll be where that figure's coming from at the outset. Everything else we're asking for there will help to strengthen that evidence, if you like. Okay. Your role in the sector, what you might have expected over the period. If you were talking about income generation over that period, what you would normally have expected. You could look at what it was like last year or whatever.
Yeah.
So your role in the sector, your time in the sector, what you do, what you consider that you've lost over that period would relate to that figure that you come up with as your request.
Okay.
And we'll be looking at that as being what you need.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that okay?
Yep. And then just the second one for just clarity on the source, the independent source to verify who you are and what you say you do. Can that be in email form, a PDF copy of my email to them and their reply, or must it be a formal letter on headed paper? You know, I'm just thinking ahead to some of the promoters that I may get in contact with, and it may be easier to get an email reply from them at this time than a letter. So I just want to be sure that that's acceptable rather than attaching it and the application not being as strong as it could be.
Well, if you could manage to get, well, yes is the answer to that. Yes, if you can get that type of exchange, that would be eligible. Also, if you can get any kind of a logo or headed material onto the email, some of them have those automatically anyway in the signatures. But if you can get that, if you can ask for that as well, would be useful. Okay. And anything that just verifies the thing, you know, in the normal way would be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Fine.
Mark, if you even wanted to come up and, you know, all of you guys with, you know, your own sort of pro forma that, you know, you're setting it out for them because, you know, they're very busy. And if they are, will absolutely, you know, be going, great, thanks, Mark, you made that very easy and I'm very happy to verify that. Yep. You know, that's okay. You can do that. You know, you can make it easy for your referee to say, listen, you know, I've been asked to supply the following, here's, you know, as you know, my role, my et cetera, but that they can translate that into their own words.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, almost a copy and paste thing for them and just adapted. Yeah, that's fine. No problem.
References now for all sorts of things. And, you know, that's perfectly acceptable. And just on your first question about, you know, the criteria, just wanted to note, as I'm sure you probably all have, it's a very different scheme. We're not looking at quality of your practice. You know, and as you know, if you've ever applied to our SIAP, it's all about your artistic quality and your track record as an artist. So this is very different. You know, and Damien's described the, you know, the huge range of people. So obviously we're not looking to see if you're the best, you know, set designer or cameraman, or, you know, it's not about that at all on this occasion, which is, you know, great, frankly. So just wanted to say that.
Yep, perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, we don't want to make people sit on a platform if you've exhausted your questions, but just to give a last round the room, if anybody wants to.
Sorry, I just have a question there. Sorry, I'm a disabled artist. You did mention, Damien, that there was a top up of 2,500 for disabled artists. Is that I wasn't aware of that. Is that clear and simple on the form? Is it?
It is, yes. You would just indicate your need that you would need that figure, or a figure within that 2,500. That's all you would need to do.
The 5,000, is that?
Yes.
Plus? Yes.
Yep.
It's on top of it. Well, yeah, we've got a little box, and we're not being intrusive. But if you don't mind, you know, we will say, you know, are you disabled, deaf, yes. Disabled artist? You know, please tick. That's very helpful for us just to know, again, in terms of, you know, gathering statistics and reach of the programme. Okay. And then it'll say, tell us about your additional costs up to 2,500. Again, you don't need a detailed budget breakdown for that. It'll be you telling us, well, you know, in broad terms. And again, that helps us to understand what additional support needs people might have for future programmes as well. So we're not being intrusive, but just, yeah, take and tell us.
Many thanks, and thank you, Damien, for your wonderful explanation. It was answered most of my questions there. Thank you very much. It's great. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome. Okay, anybody else? Yes,
Yeah.
Jackie?
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, sorry, I got a delivery there just at the start of it, so I had to nip out of the room. That when you're applying for the grant, the amount you apply for, I didn't catch that bit. Is it a case of that you only get that if you're unsuccessful, you don't get anything, or that the Arts Council may come back with a like a counter offer if they think you're eligible?
We'll come back with an offer if it's not, within that 5,000. Could be the 5,000, but the starting point in that, Jack, is your request and how strongly that's evidenced, and then we'll come back to that.
Thanks very much, and thanks for the online.
Yeah, no, I'll just pick up on that, Jackie, because we talked about it a little bit, and indeed we had a previous applicant who got a lot less than they'd applied for, and would they still in the previous round, and would they be on the reserve list then? Technically, yes, but even if you meet the criteria, it's not an automatic, equation that you get the amount that you applied for. We try as far as possible, based on the strength of your application, to do that. But just if there is demand, we might make a smaller amount, offer a smaller amount, just to try to make the awards go as far as possible. But we still want that to be meaningful within your request. So like if you have got a project, or if you have, there are particular. It's unusual in this program that people will be coming in to say, I can't do it on less than, yes, we'll try still to make a meaningful offer, even if it isn't what you've asked for.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, anyone else?
Well, look, thanks everybody. I think that was very useful for all of us, actually, to get tested around those questions that were coming through, because we'll be getting a lot of queries and a lot of different types of information coming into us, and we're going to have to try to respond as best we can when it comes to the assessment process. So look, thanks very much everybody for coming on, and have a great Christmas, everybody. Make the best of it. If ever there was a Christmas needed, it's this time round, So let's make more of it. Okay, so stay safe, and we'll look forward to your applications.
Yeah. Happy Christmas. Nice to see you all.
Okay, bye-bye now. Bye.
Bye.